Welcome to The Critique.
This week, we're looking at the audio from a book launch for Imprisoned Souls, poems of Uyghur prisoners in China.
Right. And our focus is on how the presentation could better mobilize support for the detained poets. The source material is incredibly powerful.
It really is. The dedication here from everyone involved is it's exceptional.
But for an event that's really about advocacy, about immediate action, we think the structure could be a lot sharper.
Yeah, I felt the energy just sagged right at the beginning where you need it most.
I agree completely. And that's actually where I want to start, with that structural setup.
Okay.
Our first point is this. The initial presentation sequence delays the emotional gravity and the central purpose of the book.
It dilutes the urgency?
It absolutely does. It buries the lead. I mean, this event is basically a global distress signal.
A plea for intervention, yeah. But the publisher spent what felt like a really long time talking about the history of Hertfordshire Press.
21 years of history. The challenges of selling translated books.
And, even detailing past successes, like that film adaptation about Igor Savitsky and the Nukas Museum.
And while that's interesting context, it feels like an institutional retrospective. It prevents that immediate, sharp pivot to the poets.
Whose lives are at stake right now?
Exactly. It makes the whole thing feel like a celebration of the press's history instead of an emergency mobilization.
And when you spend 5 minutes on a past success, you're telling the audience this is an archival project, a literary achievement.
Not a why now moment.
It just completely undermines it. The material is strong enough. It doesn't need that long setup.
So the suggestion here is a pretty fundamental shift. You have to restructure the opening to establish that why now immediately.
We think the editor, Aziz Issa El-Kun, should go first.
He's the one carrying the emotional weight of this. He should set the tone of urgency, and then the publisher can come in with the context.
Exactly. And to make this concrete, if the publisher absolutely must speak first, you limit it.
Keep it tight.
Super tight, like 60 seconds. He says, we're dedicated to Eurasian literature, and then he uses that terrifying statistic they mentioned later on.
The one about 180,000 new books published in the UK every year.
Yes, that shouldn't be a footnote. It should be the setup.
So the publisher uses that stat to frame the problem. And then the editor walks up and says, effectively, in a sea of 180,000 distractions, we have to talk about the fact that my friends are in Chinese prisons.
See, that connects the logistical reality to the human cost instantly.
It gives the audience a reason why this book has to fight to even exist.
And then the editor can share that, that visceral dread he felt over 5 years of working on this. That has to be the hook. The urgency comes first, then the details.
That's a much more powerful opening. It turns a history lesson into a call to attention.
Okay, so moving past the structure, let's talk about the narrative framing.
Right.
The material underutilizes the most dramatic part of the story, which is that these poems were literally smuggled out of prison.
I felt this so strongly. It's a huge missed opportunity to frame the whole book as a victory over repression.
Yeah, I mean, the most powerful elements, the fact these poems survive censorship, prison walls, all of it, that all comes out much later from other speakers.
It keeps the focus just on suffering, which is vital, but it misses the theme of defiance.
We need to weaponize that drama. This isn't just a sad collection. It's the result of, an intelligence operation almost.
So the suggestion is to integrate that high-stakes narrative of retrieval right into the editor's main speech.
Frame the collection as voices that continue to echo, even though they're being actively silenced.
So you're making it a testament to resilience, not just a document of persecution. How would you do that practically?
Well, when the editor introduces the project, he should frame it as a 5-year investigation against a total information blackout.
I like that. Investigation?
Yeah. And he should talk about the struggle, piecing together fragments from old magazines, online sources, the difficulty of just verifying things.
That changes the audience's role, doesn't it? They're not just passive listeners anymore. They're partners in uncovering a truth.
Exactly. And to anchor this theme of resistance, you use the poem Nameless.
By Janissa Imar, the one they said was smuggled out?
Yes. You highlight that specific example early on. It becomes the ultimate symbol of the whole project.
So you'd recommend reading that poem early in the program. You establish that their voices can't be erased before you detailed the full scope of the tragedy.
Right, so by the time the audience hears about the cruelest persecution, they've already seen an act of defiance against it.
It shifts their relationship to the text, from sympathy to solidarity.
They're holding the evidence.
Okay, that brings us to our third point, which is really the whole reason for the event: audience actionability. The desire for action is there. It's clear, but the calls to action themselves are a bit too general, and they're spread out all over the place.
That lack of focus is fatal for momentum. You get these broad phrases like every share or a general appeal to engage in activism.
Which feels good to say, but doesn't give people a clear job.
Not at all. And then the really crucial details, the specific stuff like collaborating with Exiled Writers, Inc. or using the reports from Radio Free Asia, functionally charged, but they don't have a clear mandate.
And that energy just evaporates.
So the suggestion is pretty straightforward. Consolidate all of that into 2 or 3 specific collaborative tasks.
And present them right after the main emotional plea, when people are most motivated.
You need a dedicated segment for it. After the poems are read, the editor and the human rights advocates get up together and they formalize the strategy, a unified front.
So what would those tasks be? They need to feel more sophisticated than just, share this post.
Well, first, you turn the audience into partners in the investigation. The editor mentioned his gratitude for the RFA reports.
Right, from the reporter Shorat Hausher.
Exactly. So you direct the audience to actively seek out and use those reports as a primary source. You name the reporter. You give them a journalistic task.
That's powerful. You're empowering them to continue the work the editor started. I like that.
Second, you make those institutional connections concrete. Don't just mention Exiled Writers, Inc. Tell people how to collaborate with them on this.
And third,
you move away from generalized activism and you focus their attention on specific, named individuals who are detained.
Several speakers mention people like Dr. Rahel Dalut or Ilham Tohti,
whose situations are still unknown.
So the actionable challenge is what?
The challenge is to use the energy from this book to make their specific cases known. You connect the audience's effort to real, effective human rights work, like the model used by the Vienna Library.
Focusing on named individuals to get them on the public record.
Yes. You're moving the audience from just sharing a tragedy to actively contributing to targeted advocacy.
So they leave with a clear plan, a source for info, RFA, a partner, Exiled Writers, Inc., and a list of specific people to campaign for.
It makes them partners, not just consumers of tragedy. That's the key.
This has been a really insightful look at a project with such a critical purpose. The dedication behind it is so clear.
Absolutely. And just to recap, to really maximize the impact of this book launch,
the 3 main areas are clear. First, restructure that intro. Get to the emotional urgency immediately.
Second, really lean into that dramatic narrative of the smuggled poetry. Make defiance the central theme.
And third, consolidate those calls to action. Give your audience a specific, collaborative plan so they can leave ready to work.
We're genuinely invested in seeing this project have the widest possible reach.
Please, implement these changes. We think they could make a huge difference. And we'd invite you to send the revised plan back to us for a follow-up critique.